Hi everyone, Scott McGinnis here from ArmsportVideos, and this week we are in focus at the Canadian Arm Wrestling Championships in Fredericton, New Brunswick. With me at this time, I have the great privilege to sit down and have a chat with President of the CAWF and President of the WAF, Mr. Fred Roy. Hi Fred, how you doing?
Hi Scott, I'm doing fine. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see you here.
Great, I'm glad you would give me the opportunity to sit down and have a chat and discuss a little bit of arm wrestling with us.
Yeah, it's not often we get the chance to actually sit down and do this kind of thing, and so things are a little slow here just before the actual start, so I'm pleased to be here with you.
Well, it's definitely my privilege, and I think everybody out there with the advent of the internet is going to appreciate whatever it is you have to say, and
alrighty,
away
thank
we
you.
go.
Yeah.
Well, first, you know what, let's give us a little bit of background. What first interested you in arm wrestling?
Well, I was born into a family of 7 boys and 4 girls, so I had lots of ready people to arm wrestle. And being raised on a farm and work bush camps through all my off seasons away from school and stuff, I just naturally got strong. And genetically, I was lucky that in the sequence of events where I was born, I was 4th in the family with a large span in between, and my mother had time to rest up from having all those kids. So I think genetically, I got lucky in that part. And then from there, like, I always arm wrestled at school and stuff, and you know, at the bush camps and those kind of things. And then my brothers were always pushing me into arm wrestling because they called me a petit bœuf, which is French for little beef, because I was a short, stocky guy. Yeah. And I just got started from that. And then in 1979, John Miazdzyk came into the scene, and we always have a very large tournament, a winter festival in Prince Albert from my hometown. And Dr. Reg Marcinko came in, and he invited Tony Senger and John Miazdzyk to come and put on this arm wrestling tournament in Saskatchewan, Prince Albert. And this was in 1979, February of 79. And I went there immediately because I wanted to arm wrestle in an organized fashion, and I proceeded to get beat. Ended up getting 3rd, and I was like, how could this happen?
I'm not supposed to lose, right?
Exactly. And it was little guys that were beating me, and I couldn't believe this, and I got hooked into it. And then I started working with John immediately. We organized the North American Championship that year, and we had it back in Prince Albert in November of 1979.
So just for those who don't know, that's Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, in Canada. For anybody not familiar with
Sorry
Prince
about
Albert,
that.
that's okay.
And then from there, I got involved immediately with John, and I organized the Saskatchewan Arm Wrestling Association. I put that all together, and I started running tournaments. I traveled to Alberta for a year and a half, consistently getting beat. and I kind of started looking at it, and I started figuring out the logistics and all of what really the science of arm wrestling. Okay. And that's how I got involved into it. And once I understood how arm wrestling really works, it being a leverage sport and all of the technique, I proceeded on.
So from what I gather from yourself and other people I've talked to, is that basically really organized high level arm wrestling started out west in Canada, did it? That's
well, they were organized in the east, but it was lots of faction groups all over the place, and it wasn't like you could talk to a lot of different people, and there was probably 10 nationals held a year, and you know, we had a vision out west of how we wanted to go, and John had a good vision until his passing, of course, and man, we just grabbed that goal and kept going with it, and you see what we've got today. It's phenomenal.
So especially in the beginning, so John Miazdzyk was obviously a very unifying force, and he pushed us in a certain direction that, of course, I think you're carrying on today. But right. So was it basically him, with the help of yourself and Tony Singer and other people around him?
That's where we got started, and he kept telling me what he wanted to do, and he, of course, for those that don't know, John passed away in 1989 from a brain tumor, which is very unfortunate because he was just reaching his pinnacle. He was the host, he was the host for the very first World Arm Wrestling Championships, and it was held in conjunction with the United States, India, and Brazil. And with those 4 countries, those were the very first countries.
And where was it held at?
In Wetaskiwin, Alberta. Okay. And he paid for everything. He remortgaged his house, and he paid for everything, all the hotels for the people that were there that showed up. Nobody paid for nothing, no food, no nothing. Really? And that was his goal, to do that. But now we've grown so much, we can't keep that going. So.
Okay, so you started off as an arm wrestler, and you're traveling around with John and learning the science of the sport. So how did you do? Did you get better? Did you win in nationals, worlds, etc.?
That's right. I started in 1979, and I didn't win a nationals in 1982, and the nice part about that is those years that it took to learn and do that, my first national championship was over Tony Senger.
Wow.
That was a yeehaw.
Yeah.
He was my mentor too. I chased him for a long time trying to beat him, and once I had him there, we've been back and forth, but he was one of the top arm wrestlers around.
Well, a legend in Canada as far as arm wrestling is concerned. I mean, Tony Senger's a pretty big name.
Yeah, that was excellent. And then I kept at it, and then in 1985, Mexico City was the World Championships, and I won a right and left there. That was unbelievable there. I was all sit down. At that time, we used to alternate sit down to stand up. That year was a sit down. And then in 87, that turned out to be another sit down in England, and I got 2 silver medals there, which was really good. And I actually had more fun with those 2 silver medals than my 2 gold medals.
Really?
The competition was so tough, and it was just excellent. A really good tournament. And then I got in 88 and 89, I got bronze medals only because I was really starting to get involved on the political side of things at that time.
So 88 and 89, that's when you started?
More into the executive part.
Okay.
I guess I could say I was politically involved right through the start because I developed the Saskatchewan Arm Wrestling, and then I helped with John with the Canadian Federation, and we just kept that pushing into the direction of having only the one national, the one federation, as opposed to even East and West type of thing.
Okay.
So that worked out really well, and we had excellent people from the East that bought into our vision. And
I'm curious at the beginning, though, when you're trying to, for lack of a better word, unite the country in arm wrestling, was there resistance from some of the Eastern people or even the Western people?
Oh, absolutely. Because everybody had their own way of way of wanting to do things, and I didn't force the issue on anything. I just laid out my vision as to what we wanted, and I went at it in baby steps. I went to first of all in a fashion where we had a Western and an Eastern championship, and I used the analogy of even if the Eastern and the Western formed Team Canada, we may have had first place guys in the East that couldn't beat our fourth place guy in the West, and vice versa. And with having laid that out, people started seeing that kind of made sense. And then by 1992, we had a unified nationals.
One nationals for the whole
Canada.
country.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's been that way ever since. We just alternate East to West, and it works out great.
Okay. On that note, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back in again with Fred Roy, President of CAWF and the WAF, and this is in focus at the Canadian National Arm Wrestling Championships in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So when we left off, we were just briefly starting to touch on yourself and John Miazdzyk were unifying Canada, so we had one national tournament as opposed to different nationals around the country. So a little bit of resistance, but you guys were successful in that. And then what direction did John want to go, or you and John want to go in from there?
Well, at that time, John wanted us to, his vision again was even further than Canada. It was towards the world too, to try to get a big world championship going. And he had people like Bob O'Leary, who was one of the founders. Barry Sparandos from India was also one of the guys that was working in the beginning. And unfortunately, we fell a little to the wayside there. But during the course, like, I was involved right in the beginning with the Constitution, the bylaws, the rules, and we just kept driving forward and trying to it used to be like a pretty cumbersome piece of legislature in the Constitution and stuff, and we have streamlined it pretty good, and now we're at a point where we're doing a lot better. But in that process, along the way, I was, unfortunately, the World Federation at that time was called the World Arm Wrestling Federation, WAWF, and the thing was it wasn't being run democratically. It was being run more like a corporation, which I think was the focus of some of the original founders, and they wanted it to run it like a business, which wasn't conducive to good building process, because a lot of countries had something to say, and they weren't being listened to. And what I wanted to see was a democratic process. And in democracy, you can't run a democracy like a business. Like,
well, no, you can't. So what I'm getting is, so basically, did you have an executive set up, and they were making all the decisions?
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of wrong ones, and they weren't focused on the longevity or the real gist of what we wanted for arm wrestling. They were more focused on the business side of it, what they could make along the way through it.
Okay.
And I'd like to be able to do that too, but we can't. We have to listen to everybody, and we have to, everybody should have a say in how it's going to get developed, and that's what we've been doing, and it's worked out really good. So in 1997, is where we had a split for a while in the World Federation, and that's where it all started. Was in 1987. There was
1997. 1997. Where were the Worlds that year?
They were in India, and Canada.
So at that point in time, what was your position in the WAF?
I was one of the vice presidents.
You were one of the vice presidents.
Yeah,
okay.
I was president of the North American Federation, and what we had the Worlds for '98 in Canada. We had been given the bid, and in '97 I brought the bids forward. I gave all not the bids, but the actual package of how the Worlds were going to be held. So when I left there, it was quite a turmoil-filled event in India. There's so many things. I'm not even going to go into it now. There was so many things that didn't go right, and still in the event turned out rather well. But the problem that we run into was we had butted heads with the other people in the executive, and as I walked out of that place, they turned around and awarded the World Championships to Egypt, and I had already done all of that, and I happened to run into General Osman at the airport in Guwahati City, and he tells me, I said, so we'll see you in Canada next year, and he said, oh no, he says the Worlds are in Egypt. I said, well, how can that be? I said, I got the licensing and everything, and he says, oh no, they said that you never gave them a check so that it was wide open, and then I just remembered that I had the check with me, so so no problem. I went to the post office right in the airport, and I put a registered letter, and I mailed it to Mr. Doss. And then they used all kinds of other excuses, and we were all set up already to run the Worlds. So we just invited all the countries to come out, and we went forward, and we went ahead, and we held the Worlds, and we ended up with 11 countries that showed up at our Worlds. And that's where the split happened, and they ventured off, and they went up to Egypt, and they had a world championship.
So in 1998, we've got 2 world championships going on.
That's when all
you're running, Canada's hosting in Thunder Bay, I believe, in '98.
Yes, it was.
A world championships, and then in Egypt there's also world championships.
Right. And then from that point on, they pretty well excuse me, they pretty well disintegrated themselves. Because now there was nobody questioning what they were doing, and they were just going on. They changed presidency. I don't know. They had 4 or 5 different presidents, and they were booting each other out of their federations, and it was a constant battle. Nothing was being progressively done.
Okay.
And we just held the course, and I said it's going to be a democratic organization, and everybody's going to have a say in it, and that's what we did. And we just kept pushing. 10 years later, the other WAF went completely defunct, and we are now back to the one World Arm Wrestling Federation. And along the way, I just want to say that the WAWF turned into WAF, which was then called the World Armsport Federation.
Okay.
And that was, I don't know, Doss came forward telling us that we had to do this because the Olympic Committee, and I didn't even realize we had even talked to the Olympic Committee at that time, but he said that they had to do that because it was infringing on the rights of other wrestling sports that had the name wrestling in it. So we then after that point, we talked with a lot of different people, and they wanted it to refer back to arm wrestling. So that's why we changed the name back. We kept the acronym WAF, but we changed everything back to World Arm Wrestling Federation. And arm wrestling, we write it as one word, so as not to get confused. So it's always the World Arm Wrestling, one word federation. So then
I don't think everybody can agree on that. I see it spelled arm wrestling, one word, 2 words. I guess it depends on where you look.
Yeah, well, we do it, and I do it very purposefully so that it's one word, so that it's not mixed up with anybody else. So if you're getting it in 2 words, it's not officially coming from us.
Okay. Okay, so it's been 10 years since the split, and you're moving in a direction. So has it been positive? Like, it's been positive growth and positive feedback from your member countries, and everything's been working well?
Well, like everything else, there's always lots of growth, growing pains, but things are generally going quite well. We're heading in the direction that we hope everybody wants us to go, and that's eventually towards the Olympics. There's still a lot of work to do, and the continental federations are working really well in bringing their groups together, and that's our focus right now, is making sure that all the continental bodies are growing. In the last 6 years, we've been working really close with Asia, and they're developing really well, and I can see them once they become organized, and they are doing such a great job for all the turmoil in Asian countries. They're doing such a great job still developing the sport and bringing people out in countries. And if they can ever get all of their act together, they're going to be a very strong contending force.
Okay, so when you say we, what is the collective we, or is it the executive, yourself and Willie Dumontier, are trying to, or I'm not exactly sure. It's not your agenda, but whatever agenda that the WAF executive wants to go in?
That's right. We do it as a collective group.
Okay.
It's not just a me thing.
Yeah, well, no, and that's what I was having trouble wording.
Yeah,
when I say your agenda, I don't want anyone to think that I mean Fred Roy's agenda.
It's a common theme at all our general Congress meetings that, and everybody wants to go that direction.
Okay.
And that's why we keep pushing that way. For example, any association that we can have with groups that will help us out. A few years back, we started going after FILA, talking with them, and we had some really good communication with them. I was actually scheduled to have a meeting with them here in June, and then one of their main guys, their executive secretary, general secretary guy, Mr. Rousson, he happened to have an emergency operation, and so they canceled the meeting. So I went to Kyrgyzstan in June to help out with the Asian Championships. And on the way back, I was supposed to go to Switzerland and meet with them. And then they emailed me, and then their secretary called me, actually, and said that we wouldn't have to postpone the meeting because he was in hospital and he was recovering over the summer here.
Okay. So tell me, what is FILA?
Okay, FILA is the Federation International of Luta Associations, and Luta is the word for any kind of wrestling.
Any kind of wrestling.
Yeah,
okay.
and they're the umbrella group for any type of wrestling.
Okay.
And what we want to do is we want to get in with them, but I've got some hard, fast questions I want to ask of them before I ask the WAF to go ahead and become members with them. And, that's, of course, money costs. What's the pros and cons of belonging? And is it going to be an increase to our members? What can we expect from them? Those kind of things. I just want to know myself firmly if it's going to be a really good advantage for us. I think it will be. They're already fast-tracked right to the Olympics.
Okay.
I can use all of their stuff, all of their infrastructure. We don't have to reinvent the wheel for ourselves, even if we are a bigger organization.
Yeah.
But I can see us being a real benefit to them, because I'm sure they must get some feedback or help from the Olympic Committee by the amount of members that they have. And we have 70 member countries with 45 active member countries. So that'll be really good. That'll be really good if we can get in with them.
Okay. So right now, that's basically on hold, what I'm getting, because of
a
medical problem right now.
Right now, yeah. And I talked with actually an email with Mr. Martinetti, and they said that as soon as Mr. Rousson is ready or strong enough to meet with us, then we'll meet. I'm hoping I can do that before I go to the Worlds. If it turns out I can meet with them before we head for Bulgaria in September, I'll divert and go to Switzerland, meet with them, see what they've got to offer, and then I can bring that to the world.
Okay, so excuse me, our inclusion in FILA, is that well, a little thing here. So is that getting us into the Olympics, or a way to get to the Olympics?
That's the track to get to the Olympics, because all of the groups that are under FILA are actually Olympic sports. Okay. So if we become a member of them, we got a way better chance of becoming what do you call it?
A demonstration sport to start with.
And go from there. And I can see that within our organization, we're going to have to do some changes again. For example, we got so many weight classes right now. Like right now, we run a tournament, a world championship for 4 days. Like it's a long, grueling days. And I can't see if we make it to the Olympics, even as a demonstrator sport, they're going to tell us that we got to groom that down to whatever they think feasible.
Okay, now, so who decides that? Would that be FILA, or will that be an Olympic committee?
That's what I want to find out. I want to find out if it's that. If we still get the rights to decide all our own stuff. Okay. And that's one of the big things that we want to decide. We don't want them trying to run us. And they're assuring me that won't happen. They're saying that it should still happen. The World Arm Wrestling Federation will be its own entity. All the member countries still have a say in what's going to happen, and that's what I'm after.
Okay, we'll take a break and we'll be right back.